Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we share all kinds of tips, advice, and interview guests on all things innovation and leadership in modern marketing. Each episode is a conversation with inspiring people who make wonderful contributions to our knowledge in these areas and spark curiosity and ideas to pursue. Join me, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and let's get into today's masterclass on this InnovaBuzz podcast.
If you really want to dominate an industry, or if you really want to dominate a section, the first thing you need to do if you're starting out is niche down. So what can someone do? They need to get really specific with their core offer. And until you build a thriving business around your core offer, don't bother doing anything else, because then you're at least known for something. The second thing you can do is then treat your customers amazingly well. Like, that is the secret to business success. It's becoming really amazing at someone and treating your customers really well. The rest of it, in terms of how to engage and what to do, it's kind of optional. Like, as long as you're in your flow, you're being your best CEO, and you're feeling great about how you show up, and your customers love you and your employees are enjoying it, that's it.
Hi there, Innovator. It's really great to be back with another episode of the InnovaBuzz podcast. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. I trust too that you enjoyed my recent conversations on the podcast with the author of Creativity Over Perfection, Heather Lee Dyer, and change consultant Bob Dick. I'm really excited to have today on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest Rich Everett, who is a high-performance mindset and business transformation coach that works mainly with CEOs to transform their business and life beyond what they imagine is possible. Rich is also founder and CEO of the Yoga Mat Company and has been an avid practitioner of yoga for a long time. He has a background in IT and in change management, and now is all about driving tangible, aligned business results and helping his clients own their inner game for true happiness and success. He helps his client step into their version of extraordinary, breaking free from busy and making more money with meaning and creating a lasting legacy in business and life. A quick promotional message from our sponsor, InnovaBuzz, where we help coaches and consultants build their professional credibility, engage their target audience, and connect with their ideal clients. To help you get clarity about who your ideal client is, take a look at our Marketing Master mini class, where in less than 30 minutes you'll gain that absolute clarity on your ideal client and how you can communicate with them to build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship. Access the Marketing Master mini class at innovabiz.co/marketing master. It's completely free and you don't even have to give away your email. In our discussion today, Rich talked to me about how being congruent through confidence and authenticity makes everything easier, how our patterns and beliefs predetermine our results, and why you need to transform yourself first in order to transform your business and life. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Rich Everett. Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today from Melbourne, Australia, Rich Everett, who's a high-performance mindset and business coach, and he helps successful impact-driven executives and creatives and entrepreneurs win their inner game, as he puts it, and step into their version of extraordinary. So welcome to the podcast, Rich. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Jackie Jubb, who was our guest on episode 216 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we have a conversation with you, Rich. So a big hello to Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate that.
Now, you help your clients find connection, find meaning, and find results. That's kind of your three key points that you have on your website. And you're also, at the same time as your coaching business, the CEO and founder of the Yoga Mat Company. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about both of those things. But before we get on to that, I know you have a background in IT. So how did you get started in coaching?
That's a great question. Luckily, it's one I can answer too. So, I've had over a decade in corporate, and as you mentioned, that was starting off in IT. I did an IT degree and launched into a very IT led career. And as I guess corporate enterprises were evolving at that time, IT started off being the enabler, and then moved into very much the forefront as products such as SAP and Oracle, and now Oracle Cloud, started to link and join organizations together. So IT driven projects very quickly became business transformation projects, which then my role morphed and changed, and I seemed to be the conduit of the fellow who could link the technology with the business and join those two together. And at the end of my career, I'd moved purely from doing IT to change management. And the coaching came about because all through that corporate experience, I was coaching and working with executives in terms of, I guess, how to transform their businesses, what they needed to do, how they needed to shift, how they needed to think differently. So even though I wasn't necessarily consciously aware of it at the time, coaching was a big part of my role. And it wasn't until I sort of went and did a postgrad at Swinburne University in coaching that it really clicked for me. And I went, yes, this is my thing.
All right. Well, in your coaching business, what exactly is it that you do and why? I've sort of touched on a few bullet points, but give us a bit more depth on that.
No problems. So fundamentally, I grow businesses by growing CEOs. And you could be the CEO of a large enterprise, or you could be a solopreneur or an entrepreneur. But either way, I help you show up as you. And I think both the benefit and the limitation of being human is our mindset. And what I see is our mindset in business driving at least 99% of what we do, 95 to 99% of what we do, with the remainder being action. So I can literally determine where someone's business is at, either good or bad, based on how they're showing up as a CEO and where their mindset's at. And by working with them and meeting them where they're at, I'm lucky that I can help them get amazing results in their business.
So when you say showing up as you, what does that mean specifically?
I think often we have a perception of how we should be as leaders, as individuals. We come and play our role, and I think the best power is knowing that showing up as ourselves and who we really are, not a should, but as we are, taps into, I think, our truth a lot more, and we get to, I guess, drop the, in some cases, bravado, in some cases it's an act, in some cases it's the negative thoughts or limiting patterns and beliefs that we hold, to actually address where we are as human beings, where we are as CEOs, where we are as leaders. And the result of that means that because you're showing up with authenticity, and because you're showing up being who you are, and you've eliminated, I guess, the extra effort, your business shifts with you, because your mindset is shifting, because you're expanding, because you're stepping into a deeper level of awareness. Your business grows as well. And that can be as simple as something that was a challenge now being perceived as an opportunity, or it could be, I had a client last week who was, her first session with me was actually, I'm done with my business. I don't want to work on it anymore. I've had enough of it. It's not fulfilling me. And within an hour, she'd done a 180. She turned around and said, actually, now I've identified where I was feeling disconnected. I'm actually more invigorated to get into my business. And within 48 hours, she landed an extra $40,000, which to her was a huge amount of money. So, I've also had executives come into me and say, look, I've got these massive challenges around business transformation. I'm looking at having to spend $40 million. And through 60 minutes, we've been able to identify that actually, by focusing on what the core problem is and what the core issues are, and how they want to show up and how they want to work, you don't need to spend 40 million. You can get away with doing 300,000. So it really shows up, and the results are very different for each person. But the process that I work with them is pretty much the same, in terms of, we look at where you're having challenges, we focus on what's coming up, and we take steps forward from there.
Yeah, there's a lot in that to unpack. I guess you talked about authenticity and and confidence. And I like that you pointed out it's a lot less effort to be yourself rather than keep putting on your act. So there's probably a productivity argument in that too.
Absolutely.
I guess the question I have around that sprung to mind as you were explaining it was the confidence aspect. A lot of people, I guess, I mean, maybe it's the imposter syndrome, or it's they're afraid of showing up as they are. So how do you address that issue? And you mentioned limiting beliefs, and how do you address the issue of kind of people not showing up as they are because there's some fear or there's a limiting belief in there? How do you get to those?
It's a great question. So I think our brains love to keep us safe, and it's our brain's job, particularly the reptilian part of the brain, the older part of the brain. Previously it was keeping us part of the tribe and stopping us from being killed. These days, it's not so important. We know we have to look both ways as we cross the road, and that's about it. The prefrontal cortex these days is really driving a lot of what we want to do, and that's expanding who we are and stepping into bigger and greater things. Now, those two don't work so well together. So a lot of the fears and so forth that we see ourselves coming up with is the older part of the brain saying, no, mate, let's stay in your comfort zone. Let's keep you safe. Let's, we know what we know. We're good at that. Let's stay in our zone of excellence. I don't want to go into my zone of genius. So fear is super common. Everyone has it. It's part of being human. Same with the imposter syndrome. The secret to understanding both of them is what's the fear behind the fear, or what's the problem behind the problem. So, if you're failing to show up in some way, shape, or form, it's not because you can't do it. It's because there's something internally stopping you. And, for someone who's afraid of public speaking, it's a fear of visibility. And then what's the fear behind that? So there's always two or three things going on that will give someone a reason to show up or not to show up in a certain way. So imposter syndrome is something I work with my clients on a daily basis, and it doesn't matter how successful you are. It shows up in different ways, shapes, or form. I think probably the most powerful thing is to know that it's just going to show up. The secret is how well you manage it. You're not necessarily ever going to get rid of it, but you can manage it to be uber successful. Does that answer your question?
Now Yeah, certainly addresses some of the points. So you mentioned public speaking as an example, and I think I was reading something just before around overcoming fear of public speaking by being focused on the audience. And I think perhaps there's a metaphor in that of all the things, but it then comes to overcoming that that imposter syndrome thing, to say that this is my superpower, and it's my contribution to people that are interested, and it would be selfish of me not to share that superpower with those people that are interested, and so therefore I've got to get over myself and get out there and share it.
Absolutely spot on. Like, getting out of your own way is the number one thing that you can do to grow your business.
All right. Well, you also mentioned the idea of congruence and being connected with your purpose, I guess. How do you go about getting started with people on that too? Because, I mean, most people have some sort of idea of why they're here, or what their vision is, or what their goals are in life. But in terms of articulating that in a way that helps them be congruent in all the things they do, I think is a big challenge. Certainly it is for me at times. How do you work with people to get that out and get it articulated, and then start building their behaviours and how they are and how they behave in business to be congruent with all of that?
A really great question. And there's not a simple answer to that. It's a number it's a number of things. I think, as you mentioned, the first thing starts with the clarity of the outcome that you want to create, with the caveat of that may change over time. As you begin to shift and change, and your priorities shift and change, your outcomes and goals may change also. So giving yourself the space to have that end result shift a little bit, that's important. But defining it firstly, and then looking at what actions and beliefs come up around that. So let's just say you're wanting to make, I don't know, hypothetically, $10 million in your business this financial year. depending on where you're at, we need to look at, well, what are you currently doing to earn the revenue you're doing? Let's say you're making 5 and you want to double your business. Where are you currently at? How are you currently earning it? What's working, what's not? Where's the resistance in yourself and your business around your current achievements? And then how do we look at scaling that? And going through that process with someone, little bits and bobs in terms of their language or how they feel or what's going for them, what's not going for them. Like they might be having challenges with their team, they might be having challenges with their customers, they might be having challenges just with themselves and their own mindset. Each of those strings is something to pull for me as a coach. And as we start to unravel what's going on, we get a clear pathway forward in terms of how they can then, I guess, create more success depending on what it is, whether that's a revenue goal or a greater sense of well-being or just feeling better in themselves or creating more. It really depends, but there's no one solution. It's generally a combination of lots of little things.
And everything's connected, isn't it? Because you mentioned kind of a revenue goal and you mentioned other goals and then a personal one that might be well-being, which, I mean, to me, I guess in the sense of being a small business owner, it's so obvious to me that everything is just so connected. If my well-being is looked after and taken care of, if I'm getting exercise, if I'm getting fulfillment outside of my work area, then that translates into my work stuff because I've got more energy and I'm fulfilled coming into the workday, and it all works together, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's probably a newer way of thinking. I think particularly a lot of management consultants and coaches a couple of decades ago used to have a lot of separation between church and state, so to speak. Business was very, very separate to life. I tend to have always looked at things holistically because you're the same person in both. Like, yes, they're different, but you are still showing up as you. It might be a different part of you, but it's still you. So often as a coach, while I'm focused on helping someone grow their business, we do end up talking about personal stuff or even just mental stuff that's going on with them because, as you say, they are completely related and they do drive each other. Success in one will definitely impact another area. So for my clients, often because they're feeling better in themselves, they're feeling more secure in their businesses because they're starting to drive better results because their confidence is improving, their relationships in their personal life really start to blossom because they're feeling less dependent on people. They're removing codependency and they're beginning to see things in a different way. How the shifts that they're seeing in their business and how they're viewing their clients, their customers, their employees, themselves, that translates over to the home life as well. So it is quite a powerful transformation process.
Yeah, that's a good point. It works both ways. So one of the things you mentioned earlier was around some of the areas that might be challenges or concerns. So people might say, the team's not working really well or something's gone off the rails or so on. Now, all of your work begins with the person you work with, right? So
correct.
Yeah. So what's the philosophy behind that and how do you approach it?
I probably take a bit of a yogic philosophy when it comes to this in terms of your mindset creates your reality. So everything in your reality at the moment, whether positive or negative, is something that you have created. When it comes to teams, customers and so forth, I'm coaching that individual. I'm not working with a team. So how we shift your perspective as a CEO, how we deal with the problems that are coming up. And look, it could be as simple as you've employed the wrong people or what you're asking them to do is not within their skill set. It literally could be that simple. But the fact is it's a problem and you haven't done anything about it to date. So what do we need to shift in you in order to address that problem? And how is that problem therefore impacting your greater business? And where else is that occurring for you in your business? So that there's a reason why you've put that person in that role. And often we're finding people that have had issues, sometimes even from childhood, they're still selecting people or filling those roles that they needed to fill in childhood. They're still filling them in their organization. So often, you can look at having effectively a 3-year-old running your company, which is the 3-year-old you that got stuck in a pattern is still running your $50 million company today. And it's unconscious. So yes, you're an adult. Yes, you're walking in as a CEO, but the patterns are still there in some cases. So we really need to pull and understand as to why things are popping up and how they're impacting your business, and then work to address them.
Yeah, well, I think there's a school of thought that says that that inner voice that is there to keep you safe, that you mentioned earlier, is actually the 3-year-old that still lives inside you, that most of the time you keep it suppressed because you're an adult and you think that's got no place here in this world right now.
Absolutely. And I think there is, we as humans put timeline on it, but our biology doesn't. Yes, we age, but the brain is still the brain. It's more or less the same brain. Okay, you've changed cells, but the wiring is still more or less the same. So until you actively and consciously change your habits and change your beliefs and start to put different actions in, your wiring is not going to change. So we almost have to work backwards in order for the brain to catch up to where you want to be, which is why, it's why people get coaches, because to try and change in your own head is very, very challenging. And you're limited by your own perception, myself included. So having a coach or having someone like a coach is a very, very powerful tool in business.
Now, you mentioned yoga a moment ago, and I think you've been doing yoga for most of your life. And I'm guessing that's why you started the yoga mat company, but just to walk us through the whole yoga part of your life.
Absolutely. I fell into yoga through martial arts. It was part of our warm-up and cool-down sequences in karate, and I just thought it was part of what our instructor taught, but it wasn't until a couple of decades later that I actually found it was a separate thing in itself, and learnt about the philosophy and the science of yoga, and that it's not really just about exercise and stretching. It is actually a 1,000-year-old philosophy, and all about joining body, mind, and soul. And that really resonated with me because I've always felt that there's something bigger out there. I've never really been articulated. I've never really been religious as such, but I've always felt that there's something bigger out there that I was a part of. And yoga for me helps bring that together. So when I was looking at, I was still employed at the time. I was doing my postgrad. I wanted to create a business on the side that I could be passionate about. I discovered the opportunity of, I guess, creating yoga mats, because when I was looking to buy a mat for myself, they're all toxic. They're all made from polyurethane rubber, filled with horrible things that weren't good for you. You'd sweat on them, your pores would be open on them, and you'd be sucking in all these estrogens and so forth that weren't good for you. And there was very few quote unquote healthy mats on the market. So I saw an opportunity to create a business around that, which I have done with my business partner, Megan Henderson. And it's been going really, really well. It's tough. Like manufacturing is tough, and online retail is tough, but it's been phenomenal. And we're quite lucky that we've been really, really well received by, I guess, the yoga community in Melbourne and Australia. And yeah, it's been a journey though. It's been fun.
Yeah, well, there's so many people that start up a business in exactly that way, and it's fascinating to me always, because you identify a need that you have yourself, and then you check out whether there's other people that have that need, and then go ahead and put it into place, which I think is a great way to do it.
Absolutely. And so just to prove that I'm taking my own medicine, I actually have a coach to help me with that business. So
I was going to ask that next.
Yeah, I thought you might be.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think solving your own problems and creating a business around that is a great way to start.
Yeah. So did you start off getting a coach when you started that business, or was that something that came later?
It came about 8 months into it. And that was a very conscious decision, because I wanted to fail first. I wanted to see where I got stuck and what was coming up for me, so that when I engaged a coach, I would have something to talk about. Now, I get people engage me in various forms, from CEOs running massively large enterprises, and most people around at least the 6-figure mark when they engage me. But some people do engage me from the beginning. And to be honest, they're smart, because it's a fast track. But for myself, I wanted to really understand and nut out why I was engaging someone, how they'd be helping me, and what was showing up. And since employing that person, the shift in me, which it shouldn't be a shock to me, but it was a shock to me. It's been huge. Like, to get outside your own head, to step outside your limiting perspectives, to start to engage with the market a different way, to start to think about your problems a different way. It transformed our business literally within 3 to 4 months. So, I'm a coach who speaks highly about coaching and has a coach. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, can you share a story with us, something that gives us an example of what changed there dramatically that a coach helped you change?
I think we all have, and I'll speak specifically to me. I had preconceived stories about what could and couldn't happen in the market. I was going to situations where, I don't think I'll be able to do that because, and that was something that, it was literally a story that I was telling myself that hadn't been validated or tested. And what my coach helped me do was to pick out when I was limiting myself by telling a story. So if I was not investing in a particular marketing platform, or if I was not turning up to a certain event that was a yoga event because I'd done 5 and I didn't really have the energy to do the 6th, she was helping me work through, firstly, should I be there? Why I should be there, and if I felt the way I felt, why did I feel that way? So at least then, when I did turn up, I'd have a better understanding of why my energy was how it was, and how that was impacting my business. And I think it's a common theme in that we all have patterns and beliefs that predetermine what we do and don't do. And for me, having a coach is, one, challenging me on what I do and why I do it, but also expanding on other things I should be doing or different ways of looking at it so I get the best out of myself. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. And I guess one of the things that about patterns and beliefs is that if you kind of follow the same pattern or belief, then it's always going to lead to the same result, isn't it? And so certainly changing the patterns is the way to get another result. And it also opens up possibilities.
Absolutely. And just to build on that, what got you here won't get you to the next phase.
Yeah.
So in some way, shape, or form, you're going to have to shift, change, and expand internally to change your external world. And you're exactly right. If you keep running the same stories, the same patterns, the same beliefs, which then drive the same actions, you're 110% going to get the same results in some way, shape, or form.
So had you had coaching before you started the yoga mat company and went with your coach there?
The answer is yes. I'd had one really bad coach, which hadn't, and that was for my corporate career. I was really wanting to work out where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, and that was probably a positive experience in the sense that when I became a coach, I worked out exactly what I wasn't going to do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the coaching profession has a really low bar to entry. Like, it's hard to be an amazing coach, but to be a coach is quite a low bar to entry into the industry. So if you're thinking about it, people, do your research. But it wasn't until I got to university to do my postgrad that I really sort of understood what a great coach was and how a great coach can be a change agent, and how that then impacts I guess someone's life or someone's business or wherever you want to play as an individual. And that's when I was able to, I guess, build a foundation and make it my own, to think out into the market. But yeah, I'd had coaching previously that was terrible, and then through the university we're all coaching each other, and that was a great experience.
Mm-hmm. So that was the first kind of model of a good coach.
Absolutely. And I think the reason was because there was proper structure behind it. Like, it was an internationally accredited course by Swinburne University. They put the time and they put the effort into it, and because of that, the results were there. Now we can take that model and then go and make it our own, which is important. But at least there was a sense of, it wasn't just having done a weekend course and hanging out my shingle. There was a bit more depth to it.
All right. So I'd like to kind of shift gears a little bit here and put a scenario to you, I guess, and get some suggestions from you for the listener. So let's say somebody's got a challenge that they're facing. There's a problem. I don't know. Maybe it's they're not getting enough leads in through their marketing, or they're not getting enough conversions from the leads that they have. What would you say to them in terms of working on their own mindset around that, where they should start to explore what might be going on there, or what else they could do differently that will give them a different result?
Absolutely. So, great scenario. The first step I would say is let's clarify where you want to go. So what would be your revenue goal in this scenario, Jürgen?
I just made that up on the spur of the moment.
I thought you might have.
Revenue goal. Okay, I want to double my revenue in the next 3 months.
To what? Where are you now? Where do you want to go?
Okay, let's say I'm at 100,000 a month right now, and I want to get to 200,000 a month in 3 months' time.
Okay, so firstly, big aggressive goal. I like that. So in terms of your $100,000 a month at the moment, talk me through the challenges that are going on in your business. So this might be a bit more of a role play than you anticipated, but where are the challenges? Where are the challenges showing up for you in terms of your customer acquisition?
Well, let's say, okay, I probably have to get some real information now.
Go for it.
Okay, so some of the challenges are we're not being seen by the right audience or enough people in the right audience. And when we are, we're not really getting their attention or interest.
Okay, so who is your right audience?
Well, the right audience are business coaches that service the technical, industrial, and health markets.
Okay, and how do you know that they're the right people?
Well, because they're the people I love working with. They're the people that I've gone through the whole ideal client exercise and built that profile. So I'm pretty confident in that profile.
And of the ones, sorry,
I was just going to add that a lot of the clients we have are in that category.
Okay, and in terms of the business coaches that have come to you that deal in that space, how have they come to you? How have you found them?
Well, the majority have come word of mouth, so not through the channels that we're trying to fire up now.
Okay, so in your scenario, we've got $100,000 of revenue per month, most of which is driven by word of mouth. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the percentage of people of your business that's been word of mouth referral?
Oh, I'd say about 60 to 70.
Okay. So in terms of achieving your objectives, then I think we need to look at where the momentum is. So at the moment, you've got 60 to 70% of your business coming through word of mouth. That's giving you a real cash in the bank example of 100,000 a month in your example. So I'd be questioning in terms of if your desire is to double your revenue in 3 months, why would you be investing in a new platform where you don't have momentum? Why wouldn't you be leveraging, and it's not to say you can't, but why wouldn't you be doubling down on what's already driving 70% of your business?
Yeah, and that's a really great point and great question. And I think a lot of times people do get into that situation where they kind of abandon what's already working for them because they think they have to add something new, entirely new, to the mix to make a change. But it may just, in fact, be a case of just investing more energy into what's working and perhaps expanding that somehow.
You're absolutely spot on. And I think the thing I like about what you've just said is you've kept the strategy simple. You're not adding anything extra to your workload. And you've identified that rather than having to do something because it's a should, which is what we touched on earlier, you can actually do something that's already working for you. So yeah, you can add an extra platform or an extra social media stream or an extra something else later on. But if you really want to achieve your goal, well, the quickest way to get you there is to double down on what you're already doing.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was a great little case study. And I think it's consistent with, one of the things that always annoys me in the marketplace, the consumer marketplace is big for this, particularly in the internet service providers, the phone providers, and who else does this really well? The energy providers. They go out and chase new customers, and they give discounts and special offers to new customers. And when you as an existing customer come back and say, I'd like to take advantage of that special offer, they tell you, no, you can't have that because it's only for new customers. So they chase new business at the expense of neglecting the relationship with their existing customers, even to the point of excluding them from special deals.
Which you've touched on a very passionate subject of mine, because the what I don't understand is when these, particularly as you say, utility companies are doing this, they've already got, let's say, 50,000 customers that are already paying their bills. They're providing them with a cash flow to stay alive, yet they're completely ignoring them, chasing new business. Now, look, new business is important, but as you say, why not look after your existing customer base, make those guys absolutely raving fans, and then word of mouth becomes your way of, earning new business. And then people want to stay customers. They're not bothering to look around.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, the word of mouth thing is a really big tool in my mind, and as you say, by looking after existing customers, they're the ones that are going to do the marketing for you.
Absolutely. I interviewed a woman as part of my podcast the other week, Odette from Odette Barry, and she's going to be someone that I'll suggest you contact her, Odette Barry from Odette & Co. And her word of mouth referral is 5 to 1. So for every customer she has, she gets 5 referrals from that person, which is phenomenal. So I think in terms of, back to your case study, we have a sense that we always need to do more, or we have a sense that we need to be doing extra things because we should, and that's what other people are doing. And I think if you really want to dominate an industry, or if you really want to dominate a section, the first thing you need to do if you're starting out is niche down. So what can someone do? They need to get really specific with their core offer. And until you build a thriving business around your core offer, don't bother doing anything else, because then you're at least known for something. The second thing you can do is then treat your customers amazingly well. Like, that is the secret to business success. It's becoming really amazing at someone and treating your customers really well. The rest of it, in terms of how to engage and what to do, it's kind of optional. Like, as long as you're in your flow, you're being your best CEO, and you're feeling great about how you show up, and your customers love you and your employees are enjoying it, that's it.
Yeah, that's great advice. Now, I'm interested because I've obviously tapped into something you're passionate about as well. This really annoys me, this whole idea of offering special deals to new customers and ignoring people that, as you say, have been funding your business for quite some time and probably would be loyal customers if you treated them properly. What do you think the beliefs are that underpin that sort of behaviour?
There's a lot. Having worked inside those organizations as a consultant, I can tell you firsthand that most of it's based out of fear. They spend all their time looking sideways at their competitors, and often you'll see one company doing one thing, and the next week another competitor will do exactly the same offer in their own kind of flavor. I really wish that they took an abundance mindset approach to this, where we want to be the best in the industry. We're going to put the best offer out there, which is just going to be, they only need one offer. All it has to do is be the best. And the way we're going to dominate and the way we're going to be leaders is to be the best at that one thing. And I think they would find that, over time, the results would speak for themselves. The challenge comes when you have lots of people in a large organization jostling to keep their roles, jostling to justify their existence, jostling to keep their budgets and get their bonuses. And then what happens, and what I work on with my CEOs, is, rather than driving your business via a spreadsheet and via reports, like, they get a report which says, okay, 20,000 customers are happy, 1,000 customers are unhappy. Oh, well, that's okay. I'm like, mate, if you get in a room with 1,000 angry people, it's not going to be a comfortable experience. So you kind of got to put a bit of reality into, I guess, the data, and start leading and start managing that way.
Yeah. And also, I'm not sure exactly the numbers, but 1 angry customer will tell, I think it's 1,000 or up to 1,000 people. And of course, with today's social media, that can be amplified quite dramatically, whereas a real happy customer might tell a handful of friends.
I agree with you totally. And I think with technology today, it's an opportunity for businesses to thrive just by treating your customers well, and they let them do the work.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I'm really passionate about today is the idea of keeping marketing and business, for that matter, at a human level. You know, people doing business with people, and I think with technology that you just mentioned, you know, that should be an enabler for more human interaction. But I think it's been almost a way for many businesses to abdicate human interaction. What's your view on that?
I totally agree. And I totally agree in a number of ways. So when customers, or in my previous life, when large organizations are doing IT-led business transformation, they see it as we plug in the system and then we're right. And that's why, you know, I think the numbers are like 70 to 90% of ERP programs, which are like $50 to $200 million, fail because there's just no engagement around that. They've lost the people side of it. The second thing is accountability. So I think IT in any way, shape, or form is a tool. It shouldn't replace the human to human interaction, and it shouldn't replace the great service that you have. Whether it's you're working with a coworker and you're using it, you know, you're both working remotely, or whether you're dealing with customers via technology, I think it's to be leveraged, it's to be enabled, but it doesn't do everything. Would you agree?
That's right. Yeah, I think on this podcast, I have conversations with people all around the world, and to me, that's using technology to connect with people and using it as a leverage. You know, if we didn't have the internet and these tools, that would be a lot more difficult to do. Phone calls are still quite expensive internationally, and so that's what I think is where we should be looking for technology to give us the ability to have more of those human connections and human interactions.
I totally agree with you. Like what we're doing now, this is how to use technology to leverage it to us for a recorded conversation and to go out in a broader platform. That's powerful. That's leverage. I think where businesses get lost and where entrepreneurs get lost and where CEOs get lost is they use it as the be all and end all. It's just a tool. Yep.
All right. Well, this is fascinating. We touched a little bit on the yoga mat company. So what are some of the big challenges you've had running your own e-commerce? It is an e-commerce company, right? You do online sales of mats?
It is. It's all online retail. The biggest challenge we've had is something that I didn't necessarily foresee, which is the drop in the Aussie dollar. So all our manufacturing is done in US dollars. So we source rubber in Asia. We bring it into China. We manufacture in China, literally because it's the only place that we can do it affordably or could do it affordably. And then we import those mats into Australia. And the biggest challenge we've had with the dollar, you know, was initially close to parity and now being in the 60 cents range, is that to us, affordability, basically. Like for us to convert Aussie dollars to US dollars and then place an order, we're almost losing money at the moment. So as a CEO now, I'm having to look at how we pivot. Do we pivot? What's the next part of the business going to look like? Do we start partnering with different brands? How do we leverage that kind of stuff? So I think the beauty of being an entrepreneur and a CEO is that the problems never stop, but it's also the challenges as well, right?
That's right. I see all these things as a huge learning opportunity as well, because you sort of look at that and say, well, here's a challenge. How do I overcome that challenge? And that's a pretty big one because it's outside of your control.
Absolutely. And I know the larger companies do hedging and they work and so forth and manage their currency exchanges that way. We're just too small for that at the moment. And it wouldn't be worth doing. So you're right. As an entrepreneur, this is a massive learning opportunity for me. And I think what you've said is the important way to take it. Like I could be very negative about it. I could see this as being the be all and end all and stopping me dead in my tracks. But really it is an opportunity. Look, we may end up moving the business somewhere else, whether it's completely offshore or to America or bring all manufacturing into Australia if we can find a way. But it's just a great opportunity to then start exploring those options.
So you don't have any sales in the US?
We do, but very few. So the downside of us being based in Australia is that postage from Australia out is very, very expensive. So for us to send a mat to the States at the moment, it's about $100 Australian. So it kind of defeats the purpose of being Australian based and shipping internationally. The way we can get around that is by shipping from Asia, which we do. But again, my role as the CEO is to look at how we scale that. And look, the US market's amazing. If we could enter that on a full-time basis, that would be absolutely phenomenal. So it's definitely on my radar.
Yeah, well, that would take away the Aussie dollar, US dollar exchange rate part anyway.
Definitely.
Obviously brings in some other challenges.
It does, but again, as you highlighted, it's an opportunity. So yes, it might mean we need to shift certain things around within the organization, and it may mean we need to look at things differently and potentially where we base things. But hey, if that's what you have to do, that's what you got to do.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Richard. Rich, this has been really fascinating, and we've covered topics from mindset and coaching entrepreneurs through to getting a bit of a coaching on a half case study of mine and looking at your challenges with the yoga mat company. So I think it's a good time now to move on to the Buzz, which is our innovation round. And it's designed to help our audience who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field with some tips from your experience. So I've got 5 questions, and hopefully you'll give us some really insightful answers that'll inspire people to go and do something awesome today.
I'll do my best.
So what's the number one thing you think anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
I think you need to understand the problem first. So innovation can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I would always challenge anyone who is looking to innovate to say how well do you understand the problem and what you're actually trying to solve. Otherwise, why are you trying to innovate? So that would be my number one.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Sort of get really clear on what the problem is first, and maybe what the outcome is that you're aiming for.
Absolutely, I'd be spending 80 to 90% of my time defining the problem for sure.
All right, what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
So I think probably building on number one, so you understand what you're trying to achieve and the problem that you're trying to solve, and then be prepared to think outside the box. Like ideation and having fun as an employee or as a consultant or as an entrepreneur, you don't get to be completely creative and think outside the box a lot of the time. So often the boundaries are defined for you. So I think in terms of innovation, if you're clear in terms of what you want to achieve, start getting crazy. Let's start thinking about how we can do things really, really differently, draw upon different industries, get people in that you wouldn't normally consider talking to. So, when I've been in corporate, we've engaged with artists, we've engaged with creatives, we've engaged with different, like we've spoken to beer brewers, we've spoken to all sorts of things, people coming from different industries, engineers when we're talking to arts, all that kind of stuff, because the diversity of thinking gets you a better outcome. So if you're looking to innovate and you're wanting to create unique ideas, then I think diversity in terms of the thinking is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think in doing that, often you can see how things are done in one industry or in one particular sector and abstract that to a higher level in terms of not the specifics of what result they're achieving or what they're doing, but look at the process or look at applying that thinking or process to a different scenario.
Absolutely, 110%.
All right. Do you have a favorite resource that you use most often?
In terms of innovation or in terms of project management?
Yeah, innovation. I mean, project management could be innovative.
So I think in terms of how I run my business from a coaching perspective, it's Zoom. So Zoom conferencing enables me to connect with individuals all around the world. And I can be based in Melbourne or I can be based anywhere in the world, and I still get to enable, empower, and change people's businesses and lives. And because of that flexibility of the platform and because it does what it can do, as my business evolves, like my client base can evolve, and for me, it enables me to innovate that way.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it? That You can just jump on that call and have a conversation, even a video, even record it for the client and make the recording available to the client afterwards so that they can review what was discussed and what was agreed and whatever, if there was a teaching in there.
Absolutely. It's quite powerful for my clients to be able to go back and listen to a recording and just reflect on things. Like they do that a lot.
All right. What's the best way to keep a project or a client on track?
In terms of a tool, I use Basecamp for my coaching practice. I think holistically, though, it's coming back to clarity around what are you wanting to do, why are you wanting to do it, and then finding the best way there. So coming back to your case study, it's the objective is to double your revenue in 3 months. What are you doing? How do you want to do it? And what's the fastest route there? Now, to solve that problem from going 100,000 a month to 200,000 a month, there's probably 15 to 20 different ways of doing it. But there's only one or two that's probably going to be a right fit for you, and probably really only one or two that are going to build on the momentum you've already got. So I think keeping clear and coming back to why you're doing something is the key driver.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right. Now, what's the number one thing you think anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Be who they are. Like show up fully, whether it's as a brand, as an individual, be completely you, because that is the uniqueness of like people buy unique. People don't want cookie cutter. Despite what they say, they really don't want it. People will always pay more for one-offs. And the more you can show up as you, whether it's through your podcast, whether it's through your business, whether it's just you being a friend or a partner to a loved one, I think the more you can step into that, which is a journey over time, but the more you can own you, the better your results are going to be in business and in life. And the other thing on that would be don't look sideways. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry about what other people are thinking. Yes, okay, have a sneaky sideways glance to see what competitors are doing every now and then, but don't let it determine your business. Don't let it change your strategy. Don't let it detract or for you to start playing a smaller game because of that. And the people who can do that well are the ones who really shine.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think the idea of not looking sideways at competitors, somebody said, and I'm not sure who to attribute this to, but the competitors don't pay your salary. So it's the customers that you should be paying attention to, not the competitors.
Absolutely, and it's the same for CEOs when they get scared about shareholders and what the shareholders are going to do. Well, yes, it's nice to be able to give the shareholders a dividend, but at the end of the day, it's the customers that are paying the bills. So if you take care of your customers and take care of your employees, the shareholders are going to get a dividend regardless.
That's right. That's the counterintuitive thing for me, that particularly some of the big companies now that are, I don't know, they're overcharging. Well, the banks are a classic example because they've been in the news a lot here. Sort of overcharging customers or programs in place where they levy fees on the families of deceased people, and all that kind of weird and horrible stuff. Simply, and the argument is, well, we've got to look after our shareholders, and I always think, well, why not look after the customers? Because then the shareholders will be looked after, and not only that, everybody will be happy, and not just your shareholders.
Exactly. It's almost the simpler solution, which they choose not to do, right?
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, thanks, Rich. This has been really great. Now, where can people find out more about you and reach out and perhaps even say thank you for what you've shared today?
They can find me at everettcoaching.com or alternatively on LinkedIn under Rich Everett.
All right. And we'll have links in the show notes to that. And I'm sure your yoga mat company there will come up as well. We'll post a link to that in the show notes too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So what parting advice would you give to any business owner who wants to be a leader in innovation and in their field?
I think realize that 95% of being successful at anything is mindset and starting before you're ready. So again, going back to the imposter syndrome, it's never going to be perfect. I think 80% done in most cases is okay. The engineers out there are going to freak out, but 80% done in most cases is good enough. And the extra 20% when it comes to putting something out in the marketplace can come with time. But I think if you want to be a leader, if you want to really put yourself out there, it all comes down to mindset initially, and then, as we spoke about earlier, just being your authentic self and showing out uniquely who you are.
Yeah, I love the start before you're ready metaphor, and particularly in entrepreneurship, where, as you say, engineering and buildings and so on might not be the right approach there. But in terms of, let's say, doing a podcast or producing a video or doing some marketing campaigns, it's often better simply to put something out there and get in front of people and get some feedback. And then you learn what can be improved and keep going.
Absolutely. And the important thing that you've highlighted is then the feedback's real. Like, it's not you trying to solve the problem in your own head and trying to preempt what people are wanting. It's actually them telling you what they want, which will save you so much time and so much money and so much energy. Very important thing to do.
Yeah, a few people have said in relation, I think this was in relation to videos, and people worry about getting on in front of a camera to do video because they worry about how they look, or they worry about the sound of their voice, or whatever it might be. And a few people have said this, that other people worry far less about you than you might even think. Probably only 1% of what you think they worry about you. So what they're really interested in is what's the message or the value that you're bringing.
Absolutely. Like, I'm probably one of the most monotone guys on the face of the planet, yet I've created a podcast, and it's doing okay. So if I can do that, anyone can do anything.
All right. Well, finally then, who would you like me to interview or chat with on a future InnovaBuzz podcast? You've mentioned Odette.
So Odette would be one. She's amazing at what she does, running a PR agency up in Byron Bay. And if I may be so cheeky as to add one extra person in.
Sure.
So her name is Kim Argett Singer, and she's based in New York, and she is a mindset coach and business mentor. So slightly different to me, but amazing and inspiring person. She's a former actress turned coach, and definitely worth connecting with her.
Okay, we'll look forward to chatting with both Odette and Kim, and we'll get an introduction from you and get them on the show.
Excellent.
All right, well, thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights with us so generously today, Rich. I've really enjoyed this, learned a lot, got some tips for my own business. And I wish you all the best for the future, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Jürgen. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed that insightful and engaging conversation with Rich and took something away from his episode. There was so much good advice in our conversation today. My favourite part was when Rich put me on the spot by turning my hypothetical question into a fully blown case study. I'd love to know what you took away from Rich's episode. Leave a comment below the blog post, which you can find at innovabiz.co/Rich Everett. That is RICHEVERETT. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Rich Everett. You'll also find contact information there for getting in touch with Rich, as well as links to his website, the Yoga Mat website, his social media pages, and the other resources we spoke about in today's conversation. Rich suggested that we have conversations with Odette Barry of Odette & Co., as well as mindset coach and business mentor Kim Argett Singer on future InnovaBuzz podcast episodes. So Odette and Kim, keep an eye on your inboxes for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Rich Everett. Remember to check out our Marketing Master mini class at innovabiz.co/Marketing Master. It's completely free and accessible without even giving away your email. But most importantly, in less than 30 minutes, you'll gain absolute clarity about your ideal client and how you can communicate with them to build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship. And if you'd like our help to go even deeper into marketing mastery, or our help with setting up and producing your very own podcast, then send me an email to jurgen@innovabiz.co and we'll set up a quick call just to get to know one another and find out whether we're a good fit. Tune in again next week to the InnovaBuzz podcast. We've got some more fantastic guests lined up, including Michael Simonetti of the digital agency And Mine, and Jane Beddle of Dovetail Resolutions. Stay connected with us by subscribing to the InnovaBuzz podcast at innovabuzz.com/subscribe. innovabuzz.com/subscribe. Make sure you never miss another episode. It would also mean a lot to me if you leave us a review, because what you think matters. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions, or questions you have, so go ahead and share them in the comments below the blog post for this episode. Until next time, I'm Jurgen Strauss from InnovaBiz. Remember, be awesome and keep innovating.